Hey, lease here, pay here dealers. Did you know TaxMax can easily help your dealership boost down payments in the first quarter? Yes, it's true and very simple. TaxMax provides the lease here, pay here dealer the ability to put a file and drive button on their website and your social media pages. While customers are looking at your inventory during tax time, they can easily click on the file and drive button to file their taxes directly with TaxMax, all from their phone. When the same day tax refund advance is released, the refund is sent to the dealership first to be used as a large down payment. There is no risk, and the dealership doesn't have to lift a finger. You will have customers arriving at your dealership to pick up their tax refund, pick out the car they want to lease, provide you with a large down payment, and then drive off. It's that simple. Go to taxmax.com today to join the thousands of dealers who are maximizing their tax season. Ask about our 50% off discount on our VIP package. That's taxmax.com. And remember, nobody gets you more down payment money than TaxMax.
Do you currently own a reinsurance company or thinking about starting one? Reinsurance is one of the greatest ways to reduce risk and build long-term wealth. But who's your partner? Welcome to the Preferred Dealer Solutions family of companies, your one-stop shop for all things reinsurance. Preferred Dealer Solutions is our consulting company. We build custom programs for lease here, pay here, buy here, pay here, retail dealers, and independent finance companies. Our goal at Preferred is to ensure growth, increase profitability, and create long-term loyalty through our portfolio of reinsurable products. Precision Claims is more than your standard claims administration company. We build custom claims processes for each individual client and provide you the claims data, reporting, and quota share billing that is important to your operation. Preferred Reinsurance is our accounting company. We provide our clients with monthly sessions and financial statements to ensure you have the data you need to make informed decisions. Preferred Dealer Solutions. Reinsurance done right.
Need help with accounting and taxes? Want to increase efficiency with your collections team? Does your sales team need improvement over the phone? What if you could gain better exposure through social media? Wondering if your documents are compliant? What is reinsurance? Get access to all these topics and more with our all-inclusive digital platform that dealers of all sizes are using nationwide.
Welcome back to San Diego, friends. We're live from the LHPH Summit, and we have Mr. Trevor Watson with us. And Trevor, it's been a fun day for Michelle and me. We've gotten to know some dealers that we didn't know before. We brought some others to the microphones, and it's just a beautiful setting here. This hotel is fantastic. I told Michelle, I don't know that I've ever been in my hotel room and been able to look out and see aircraft carriers, at my hotel window. It's really
quite a location for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's been a fun day for us, and just a great atmosphere. And I thought we might take our time here to kind of recount the circumstances. I mean, here we are in October of 23. We're in a post-COVID environment where cost of cars high. We're, dealers are struggling. We've got, economy's tough. Prices are up. I'm not sure Michelle and I will be able to get home at your California gas prices. I'm not sure we're going to be stuck here. So we hope you got some openings on the team down there.
You guys are welcome anytime.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. No, it's at its time, right, where the economy is struggling. We're hearing in some of the sessions today, we've heard people talk about lenders withdrawing from the space, and you and I have seen that, in our time in this industry. So we know that happens. We see capital expand and contract in this space. So dealers are navigating that. So I think, for you and me to talk about this especially in a leasing context, it's like right now is a time where dealers need to be super smart about allocation of funds, managing their business. And so I know you've been in some of the sessions. Like, what are you hearing? Like, what's been a theme for you that you've heard out of some of the events today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really stood out to me so far is that dealers have had a challenging 2023.
Mm-hmm.
By and large, I think most of them have experienced the pinch. There might be a few folks that, for various reasons, managed to navigate it better than others. But it's been a challenging year for a lot of dealers.
Yeah.
And, and it's a function of all the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But inflation, particularly eating away at the consumer, which then, of course, has been creating additional delinquency and then additional losses. That's one piece of it, tied at the same time with rising costs from everything from parts and labor and you name it. And so you're seeing dealers getting kind of squeezed from both sides, which is a really challenging environment. At the same time, you're hearing everybody saying all the same things that we saw back in 2008, 9, and then 10. And when you talk to a buy here, pay here, lease here, pay here dealer, those were some of the best years in the industry.
Sure.
Obviously there's that initial drop, and that's, I think, what we're seeing right now is that initial impact of the delinquencies.
Yeah.
But at some point here shortly, you're going to find a floor.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the customers that are in your portfolio that are going to make it, right? You now have that baseline, if you will. And at the same time, you're going to have customers that are now, unfortunately, starting to slide down the credit spectrum. Right. You got student loans coming back, which is already going to be a pinch for a lot of folks. You have credit card debt that is at an all-time high at this point. You have bankruptcy filings that are starting to really spike. And that's all going to play into bringing some of these customers that 6 months ago, a year ago, were 680s, 650s, and they may slide down. And simultaneously, you're getting the other lenders that are pulling back. And everyone's seeing that right now. So as they have less appetite for that consumer, and you have more of those consumers that slide into that bucket, those people still need transportation. And that's what we saw back in 09, 2010, 2011. Those were excellent years once we moved past this initial dip. And we are getting there. We can actually see with our dealers, with our customers specifically, their financial statements, you're seeing year-to-date numbers really starting to improve. So I do think we are starting to see that initial floor that we anticipated. And I anticipate, and it sounds like most of the dealers in there anticipate a pretty good 2024 going forward.
Yeah, and we see the same thing. Like, we're not in the business of prognosticating. I usually say, it's probably going to stay about the same. But I think, there is an argument to be made that there will be more opportunities for those dealers who are in a position to seize the opportunity in the coming years. And so I think, we don't mean to sound pessimistic at all. Like, it is more difficult, mostly because of cost of car and increased cost of money is going up. And so that, there's that pinch, as you said. But I think what we see is that because the people are withdrawing from the space, those dealers who are well positioned have a chance to really do a lot of great business. And they, as we said with some of the dealers that we spoke with today, it may not be more business, but it might be higher quality applicants or stronger applicants, a stronger portfolio. So it might be better business. We'll see. But I think, for me, I look at the whole landscape and kind of see some of the shifting that's happening with some of the capital providers. We're seeing people step away. We're seeing bulk buyers exit. And so I think it's a time that we can expect a little bit of a pivot for some. And we're hearing some really smart operators here with a really enthusiastic, optimistic outlook. Absolutely. And so I think that's what, I want to kind of emphasize. And I think what we see, especially in some of the work that we've been doing, most recently, some of the calculations, been working with some of the folks from your team to update some calculations, get a feel. And it really sort of, it gives me additional perspective on the advantage that is leasing. I mean, obviously we're here at your summit, the LHPH summit. So, the theme is obviously leasing. I think for us, we're not in the business of selling leasing, but we certainly want to make sure dealers are informed, that they can make an educated decision about what makes sense for them. As far as, where to go. But I do think, especially when you just look, some states, the sales tax factor alone is worth contemplating, leasing. And so I just wonder kind of what you see from your perspective in terms of advantages, in this climate.
Sure. Yeah. And there are a number of them. And one of them being that cash flow piece when we're talking about sales tax. Sure. It's only in 31 states, but that's still the majority of the United States where that is applicable. And that's going to have an instant impact on cash flow, which of course is huge in this particular business. Then you move into the affordability piece, which is, it's really why people lease new cars, right? Yeah. They lease new cars because they can get a more expensive car on a shorter term for a smaller payment. It's the same concept with the used car lease. You can provide a more expensive vehicle, which in today's world is just the same vehicle that we were talking about 4 years ago, but now it costs, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more than what it did back then. And the challenge, of course, is when you put that onto a traditional risk contract, it's very difficult to keep that payment affordable. So when you add in the residual value on a lease structure, then it just naturally gives the customer a more affordable payment.
Yeah.
And that's really where leasing typically is looked at as a huge opportunity. And in today's environment, it may just be the necessity for some customers to get them to a PTI that works.
To get that PTI is critical for those listening who wouldn't be familiar, because I know we get some folks who are newer to the industry. So PTI, we're talking about payment to income, which is usually a net income. So a payment to whatever the ratio that the dealer chooses, but we see it mostly as a payment to net income. And so what you're saying is being able to get to that lower payment is going to help that dealer and consumer strike a deal that makes sense for everybody and
Exactly.
do business. So, and I think the other thing we've been contemplating and examining is, even if the customer can afford, based on income, they can handle certain down payment and certain payment amount, then in that scenario, the dealer is certainly to an advantage from a sales tax perspective, potentially. If it was a new dealer, they wouldn't have to have all the expense of setting up a related finance company to manage the income tax. And for those listening and are not familiar, the income tax is different in a lease. Income is experienced differently, and it's only as the payments are collected.
Correct.
Right? So we're not paying income tax on money that's not already in our bank, right? So there's that piece. But I also think the part that you touched on, and I forget the language that you used, but if I think you would talk about it from a new car environment, I know years ago I used to lease new cars, and part of what I liked about it was it's a predictable cost of ownership. I'm going to have the car for a period of time. I'm going to be under warranty for that period of time, and then I'll decide at the end of the lease, what I'm going to do, what my needs are in the way of vehicle. And a used car environment is not that different. I mean, if I were to buy a used car at $500 a month payment, then if I have it for 24 months or whatever the period of time is, whether service contract, warranty, whatever it looks like from the dealer, I'm covered under that period of time, and then I can make that decision. I mean, obviously not every dealer's doing either service contract over that period of time, but certainly they're protected more during that period of early ownership, we'll say. And so it just you start to look at all those advantages. I think right now where dealers they're trying to optimize the opportunity. They're obviously trying to serve and reach as many customers as they possibly can. And I think what we're talking about here is one way that dealers could optimize their own resources and potentially create more contracts just by just by looking at leasing alone.
Absolutely. And you can do it on a shorter term, because that's one of the things that you're seeing dealers and lenders in general having to stretch term to try to keep that payment to income in line. And of course, we all know that stretching term just injects risk into your portfolio. It's not the ideal solution, but when there is no other solution, that's what people have gone to.
Sure.
So if you can shorten that term, that's better for the consumer. It's better for the dealer. It speeds up the actual sales cycle, so you're bringing that customer back faster.
Right.
There's a number of different benefits that are in there for the dealership. There's also some uniquenesses for the lease contract. For instance, if it's a true lease, you cannot put it into a bankruptcy. The consumer can only accept the lease and continue to make the same payment that they were making for the remaining term. There's no cram downs, or they reject the lease and they give you the vehicle back.
Right.
In today's environment, where I would expect, based upon what they're saying credit card debt is going and where they're saying bankruptcy numbers appear to be going, that may come in handy as well for the dealership to avoid a lot of headaches. So there's a number of different pieces in there that make operationally as well as financially make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and obviously the work that Michelle and I do as coaches, we're working with dealers. I mean, that's who typically would engage us for coaching help. But we also think about the consumer. Obviously, in working with a dealer, we're asking them to think about the impact to the consumer, right? And so there's some other pieces that I want to get back to. But in thinking about the consumer side of this, if it's true that the economy is a little uncertain, and if I'm a consumer and I can step into that car for my payment that works, and I can have a finite lease term, then I can reassess at the end, and with really pretty limited risk for me. I'm going to drive the car, I'm going to have my payment, and then I'm going to make a decision at some point down the line what I want to continue to do based on where my needs are. And I may have different income at that point in time. So I think what it does is it also insulates the consumer from some risk, in that deal. So it's another piece of it that we don't probably talk about enough, just because I think that's the part that I love about the flexibility for the consumer. And so we've got, and not to mention, I mean, we also don't say enough that, do I really want to own a used car that's going to be worth, it's going to be worth a fraction in 3 years that it is now. Do I really want to own that asset? So
Exactly.
that's the other piece of it, from the consumer side.
Yeah, I think there's an old saying that you should buy the things that appreciate and rent the things that depreciate.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Of course, a car is a depreciating asset.
Yeah, and in virtually everybody that I know that does lease here, pay here scenario, the consumer can own the car if they chose to at the end. So that option is still available to the consumer.
Absolutely.
So if we think back to where leasing was before it really started happening much with used cars, and in my time in the middle 90s around the car business, we would see that the nice thing that you could explain for a customer is, look, if something makes that car change in value unexpectedly, some new car comes out, steals the market, and now this car is worth a lot less. That's not the risk of the consumer. That's the risk of the lessor who holds that title, right? And so that protects and insulates the consumer, which, from our dealer's perspective, it's just a selling benefit to help the customer get comfortable, right? Agreeing to step into that with flexibility as to where they go next. So I think when I look at the larger landscape that is our economy, I think it's an opportunity for a consumer to say, tell you what, let's step into this car. We'll have an understanding. You'll pay a payment of this for 24 months or 36 months or whatever that is. And then we'll just reassess, right, at that point in time. So I think that's among the things that I certainly see as somebody who's been around it, both on the consumer side and as a sales manager, offering leasing, and now in the used car space. I just see that it's a time when, look, the world's probably going to be a lot different in 3 years than it is today, right?
It is highly likely, yes.
Yeah, right. And so what it tells me is that the opportunity for us to, as a dealer, to say, why don't we do this for 3 years and then let's see what's next?
I think that's wise. We're talking about EVs. We're looking at all the different pieces that are coming down the pipeline, and there's a really good argument that this will be a great model for EVs, but we really don't know until we see how it all shakes out, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes a lot of sense to keep those terms short, to keep that customer coming back quickly, and giving opportunities at that point, the flexibility.
I told Michelle on the ride in here as we were kind of hopping on your famous freeways and kind of inching through traffic over here. I told Michelle, I said, forget the whole podcasting and coaching thing. I'm going to start leasing Teslas in Southern California because they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, but the world is changing. There's going to be a future. And I think from my standpoint, it's like, let's commit to this period of time, and then let's reassess. It's kind of the way I think about it. So from both a sales standpoint with the consumer and helping them feel at ease, and let's commit to this, and you'll have a nice car to drive and well protected for warranty or however that's going to work with the dealer. You would have that as an advantage. But the other thing I want to have a chance to chat with you about through our conversations today with some of the dealers, we've really enjoyed hearing from some dealers, and because it's the nature of the way LHPH Capital does business, but we're meeting dealers here who, when we get inside their story, it's so clear that they're genuinely interested in the success of the consumer, which we know is not true with all dealers,
unfortunately,
across our segment.
Right.
And so that's something that you might share from your perspective. You're bound to meet those dealers. And so you might just share kind of what you see in terms of dealers who do have that interest of the customer at heart.
Oh, absolutely. So when I first came on board with LHPH Capital, which would be about 5 years ago now, both Terry, who's our owner, as well as George, who was with us at that point in time, they said, we're looking for dealers that are going to try to leave the customer better than the way they found them.
Nice. Yep.
Which was amazing, because that was exactly what Dan Grosvenor said earlier in his talk, which was awesome. But that's exactly the point, right? Is unfortunately with this particular segment of the market, they can be easily taken advantage of. Is, I think, a way to put that from someone who understands how to go about those things.
Absolutely.
And that is not what we're looking to do. The goal here, because it's in everyone's best interest, if you have a successful customer who goes full term on their lease, and then that's going to be the most profitable customer also for a dealership. You're going to create a great relationship. You're going to have return business. You're going to have all the different pieces that roll down in a positive fashion from that. Ideally, that customer may improve their credit score along the way.
Right.
Then they can come back and get a different vehicle, whatever. It all rolls down, and it creates a better end result for everyone involved in the transaction.
Right.
And that's what we're looking for. Those are the kinds of dealers that we're looking for. And that's how we've envisioned this model to work, is to allow for that, to provide, better transportation, higher quality transportation at a lower price point for the consumer in terms of a monthly payment.
Right.
And the lease essentially helps us achieve all of those different goals.
Right. And I think, dealers at the end of the day have their own business to think about. They got to, obviously take care of themselves and their business and their people. Certainly that goes without saying. In addition to that, there's an opportunity for them to think long term. That extends to both the consumer they serve and their team and the environment that is created in what you and I are talking about, right? And so there's that piece as well. So I think this is where, Michelle and I see that we certainly in our circle, we talk about that more, than what maybe we hear in the larger market. And we just see that that's going to be more important now than ever. Like if a consumer's struggling, then it's said a lot of times, Trevor, I'm sure you heard, like, there's no more customer loyalty. I don't know that I buy that.
I don't know
think
that
we have
I
to
do
earn it.
either. I can understand the sentiment, I suppose, but I don't think that that's actually true.
I think it can be earned, right? I mean, at the end of the day, consumers want to do business with somebody they trust, feel good about, and they enjoy doing business with.
Absolutely.
And they'll show up again and again, right? So I think there's a little bit of a kind of a misinterpretation of that, perhaps. And I just think it kind of ties back to what we're talking about here, is that we see that there's an opportunity when dealers can think long term. We started talking some time ago about what I call the 10-year approach. And it means that if you're my consumer and you're having a little bit of a hiccup, whatever that is, if it's related to the car or something else, if I'm thinking 10 years down the line and this customer is going to be with me, if you're my customer, you're going to be with me 10 years. So whatever we're dealing with today is a short-term hiccup. Sure. We'll work through it. So if we have that mentality, then obviously that's going to lend to more success. It might hurt financially today, but it's like we're going to get through it. I think bringing that mentality is part of all the things you and I are talking about. If we bring that mentality to what we're doing, and it goes right back to the value of the asset, like the asset that we're providing for the consumer, we're providing a good service. We had this afternoon, Stan Summerall from Southern Mississippi's got dealerships in other locations, but to hear him describe their approach to consumers is very similar. He talked about a legacy business, and we clarified that with him, that means for them a business that makes a difference in their communities and will continue to make a difference even after he's gone, for example. And so that's really that long-term mentality again. So it's not quite as simple as I buy this car for this and I sell it for this. We just think that's what Michelle and I call straight line teachings. But if we really think about these other pieces, it really has more of an impact on the things that the success of the business, the success of the customer, than what we sometimes think about. So
absolutely.
You might add your part.
There's, I think, 2 or 3 different dealerships that we're talking up on the stage today that mentioned that they've sold or leased a car to the same individual 6 different times. 5, 6, 7 times. That's amazing. And that makes a business sense. Right?
Sure.
You have customer loyalty. You have that customer coming back. The value of that customer over the course of the lifetime of your business is incredible. And so that's what we're talking about when we talk about customer loyalty. And we do believe that the lease product can help bring that back as well, right? Like they do need to return that vehicle at the end of the lease. They can still buy it for the residual, but they do need to come back and do that transaction. Or they can come back and return it.
Sure.
And that gives your salespeople another opportunity to put them into another vehicle, if it's a sale or a lease or whatever it is. And that's that customer retention that we're aiming for, to bring them back and have another opportunity to earn their business at that point.
And this is the math that we look forward to working through, like all the things that we're talking about, that the success of the customer and that retention and repeat customer. There's some pretty heavy math in there that we look forward to working through. Like one of the things Michelle and I are working through, and this thing you've heard us talk about with the White Hat Way, it's like, how do we mathematically show? Because we've said it to dealers, and they see it and they say it's absolutely better for my business to operate that way. It's just harder math to prove out, right? And so that's part of the work that you will see us doing, is trying to get in there and show dealers, hey, mathematically it works better, for the success of the dealer. And you get to sleep good at night knowing that you're taking good care of the consumer. Right?
Absolutely. So, well, in one of the sessions we were doing earlier today, they were talking about what it cost them per customer to acquire a new customer. And some folks had some interesting numbers as what it costs them to acquire a new customer.
Oh, interesting.
If I have the ability to have a customer that keeps coming back to me, that I don't have to pay that cost to acquire each time, that pays for itself over time quite nicely.
Again, hard to measure when you have that. How many times in a given month or period are they saying good things about us in the community, which leads to referrals and all those things that we know are hard to measure, but very real, right? So I think it just all of this for me ties together in terms of, and we know, by the way, that Terry Bowdler, the founder of LHPH Capital, comes from a background, because he shared with me in a conversation some months ago about his own experience in working through ethics in business. Especially back then, they were dealing with this problem of how leasing was perceived, and there was a lot of mishandling of language around leases, and so there was some ethics problems, and so he's experienced that, I know, and so that's a big part of what he comes from, and the importance of being transparent and and have a successful operation as it relates to ethics and so on. So we see that, we know it, we certainly value you guys as a company. We see your team's outstanding. You guys all live it. Like, your culture with the company is excellent. We had a dealer tell us just the other day, said, I don't use their program, but I find them to be outstanding human beings.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Isn't that good stuff? Yeah. So we need to spread the word. I guess we just did. But yeah, so no, that's part of how we think it's important to think about the more than just us, right? There's something bigger that we have an opportunity to do here. And so certainly in this industry, there's a chance, and we're doing it. We see dealers obviously are here that are doing it, living it that way. And some of them are having tremendous success, growing really large operations with this attitude of customer success and really building long-term relationships. And so it's an opportunity for, the work that we all do to be able to showcase for dealers, this is what can happen. This is why we've really enjoyed some of the conversations here today, is like, people can see that, there's an opportunity when I really think long-term, and I think about the success of my consumer more so than taking advantage, then there's an opportunity long-term. Financially, we have to be able to get from here to there,
of course,
and so that's part of, kind of where we started is
and it's not illegal to make money. That's the point, is like, the business has to be successful so it can be there to help the next consumer.
Sure.
But the whole point is it should be a win-win-win for everyone involved.
When it does cost money to financially support this customer through that long relationship, right? Absolutely. So there are things that happen and the different ways to get there, but yeah, it's all part of it. But yeah, you're right. It's not illegal to make money. We certainly expect to be profitable, and they will be. I just think it's a matter of helping make the connection on, how this ethics piece and the thinking about the customer success, how that really can tie into the ultimate profitability and sustainability of the business. So I think we could probably wrap up there. I appreciate you making time to come to the microphones. And again, we enjoyed the hospitality. It's been a wonderful event.
Well, thank you guys for coming out. It's been awesome to have you.
Yeah, we always enjoy hanging out with you. So again, we'll wrap up there. That'll be our last session of the day from San Diego. We thank you folks for tuning in with us. And for our advertisers, Michelle, let's do a quick mention before we wrap up here. We've got, you want to help me with that? We've got Preferred Dealer Solutions. We've got TaxMax was among our advertisers. We've got Buyer Payer Boardroom was listed in there. I'm going to miss somebody. Dealery was in there. And LHPH, we know those folks. So that name's come up a few times.
Where are those guys?
Yeah. So yeah, again, thanks, Trevor. We'll see you at dinner this evening.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Every single time you sell a car, your customer has to purchase insurance, and oftentimes they purchase GAP and/or a service contract. That money bypasses you and goes straight to a third-party vendor. Why not collect it instead? We've helped hundreds of dealers set up their very own reinsurance company and offer their own warranties, service contracts, GAP, and collateral protection insurance. Learn more from Dealer Re. We have the longest running track record in our space, not just for success, but for compliance. We are a faith-based company. We are a family-owned and operated business. We are the gold standard of reinsurance. Check out dealerre.com today.